everybody. My name is Donna Fiesel, and I'm your host of Afternoon Drive Home on IC Radio. It's down in Geraldine, Alabama, resource for news and entertainment. You can also find us on television two different ways, channel 182, and that's on Charter Communications, which is in North Alabama. Then all over the whole wide world, you can find us on Abundant TV, which is a station out of Cincinnati, Ohio. And they're found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. This is a good Christian television station. Rob Patz is the owner, and Rob has been a current, he's been on the show a lot. So I do appreciate this guy giving us a chance to be on. And we have another announcement that we wanted to make. It'll be coming up probably next week. It's going to be adding about 1 million more viewers to Afternoon Drive Home. So we're
Wow.
pretty excited about that. And talk about somebody being as excited as I am about it. You should see Rob. He's turning cartwheels. He's all over it. Absolutely. But again, thank you so much for watching. You know, you're absolutely awesome. And we appreciate the time that you spend with us. It's absolutely ideal. Now, you can also go to our website if you'd like to share and download the apps. You can go to IC Radio. And then on your Apple phone, it's IC Radio Media. But thank you again so much for watching. I have a very special friend with me right now. I'm always excited when Randall is going to be on the show. He's with Karios Prison Ministry. Just all around good guy. I'm telling you. You and Lisa are the perfect couple.
Well, thank you so much, Donna. We think so, at least for ourselves. Truth is we have the same struggles in our marriage that other people have, and disagreements and things like that. But it's just a matter of figuring out how to work through those. But thank you for that.
Absolutely. We go to church, Cowboy Church, and it's over there close to in Collinsville, Lookout
Hmm.
Mountain Cowboy Church. And the pastor there, Don is his name. And so he was talking about couples getting along with each other and being able to say, I'm sorry, and stuff like that. Oh, that's really crucial. That's important, right?
Absolutely, it is, and full transparency. That's kind of what my morning consisted of this morning. Sometimes we miss the mark, and so you
Mhm.
know, it's crucial. It's crucial because if you're like me, um, my world and my whole existence is just not right if there's tension or if there's difficulty between me and my bride, Lisa. And so, I try to do the best I can to make sure to hold up my end of the deal and to say when I'm wrong and say sorry when I'm wrong and try to not just say it, but then try to do better. But it's absolutely critical.
You feel like that's part of the reason we have so many people in prison right now. Maybe it was the family life they grew up in. They just really don't know any better.
Well, I mean, statistics prove that, Donna, that and primarily it's these men and women are coming out of homes that are fatherless homes, like we've talked about before, whether that would be a home where the father is not physically present in the home, or whether the father is present in the home but absent, if that makes sense, and not really fulfilling his role as a dad. But yeah, that's just not a thought. That is a statistical fact.
Absolutely. You know, a lot of ministers, and my son is going to seminary at
Mm,
Southeastern, and it's not there close to. He's been going there for years. I think he's a professional student. He's been going out there close to the Raleigh, North Carolina area in Wake Forest. And
yeah.
so he was telling me something really interesting. They're full of statistics there as well. And so they were talking to him about their family life, you know, how important it is. And they said that divorces are on the uprise in the ministry world. Ministers.
I'll tell you, Donna, a lot of folks don't realize how difficult pastors, how difficult their lives are, and how full they are, and how depressing they can be. I've had the honor of becoming really good friends with the last few pastors that I've sat under in our church, and gotten really close to them and kind of see what their life is really like outside the church. And their job never ends. It's they're on call 24 hours. They sometimes have to kind of set their family to the side to minister and to pastor the people in their congregation. So that does make sense, because it's just hard. It's just very, very difficult. And so I pray for our pastors, not only my own pastor, but I pray for pastors everywhere, because they do have a very, very difficult job.
Mhm. Dr. Aiken, who is with the seminary there, Brad, and we really think a lot of Dr. Aiken. He's just a really good guy. And so he's telling the students there, you put your wife in there, you need to have a date night. And then he was all the same things that you and Phil talk about, with me and Lisa, and that is important. I mean, she feels very special when she gets a date night.
It's kind of funny. Saturday, Donald, was one of the first days that Lisa and I have had in quite a while where we didn't have something planned, some place we had to be, something we had to do. And so we spent almost the entire day just knocking around, riding around. We'd go in furniture stores or we'd go in different places or whatever. And we just spent time together, really not with any pressure to accomplish anything. But it was really good for both of us. She works so super hard, and I'm so proud of her for that. And my schedule is pretty intense sometimes. So absolutely, as husband and wife, you have to set aside some time. You have to make that time. You can't wait for it. You have to make that time to spend time together and just one-on-one, just the two of you. No kids, no grandkids, as hard as that is.
I was going to say.
Because it's nourishment for your marriage.
It really is. I mean, it's all about it. My dad was a pastor, and I've shared with everybody that they got a divorce. And that's one of the bad ones. And sometimes pastors out there trying to help save the world, and they forget their own family, and so that can be pretty difficult.
And it can be. And one thing that we talk about on Ground Zero Men and some of the other men's ministries that I'm involved in is, your first ministry is in your home. And sometimes as folks in ministry, we get so focused on saving the world that we forget where our first ministry is. I'm thankful for a wife who will remind me of that. I'm thankful for brothers in Christ who will remind me of that, because if my home is not right, just like I was talking about earlier, if my home is not right, there's not much else, that works well, because I'm distracted. That's me personally. If I've got something going on at home with my wife or my kids or anybody in my family, which is growing all the time again. And so it's just off. Things are just off.
Totally get it. Let's talk about Kairos Prison Ministry. That's a great, great ministry there. And so it's worldwide. And so you're talking to folks worldwide right now.
Right. Yeah, Kairos is an international prison ministry. I believe they're in 9 different countries around the world. I think that's right. I think there may be up to 38 states in the U.S. now, if I remember the last thing I read. But it is a worldwide ministry to incarcerated people, not just men. There are Kairos inside weekends in the women's institutions as well. And it is such an amazing ministry and such an amazing plan they put together for that. I was in a church yesterday, Donna, here in Fort Payne, sharing about Kairos and trying to get folks involved. And one of the beautiful things, and one of the things I shared with them is, it doesn't matter what your age is, you there's a place for you in Kairos. And I said, whether you got on an apron and have an oven there in your kitchen, or if you got a pack of crayons, you can serve in Kairos, because they make things available. They make ways available that anyone can serve. And it's just all inclusive. There's no one that I know, and especially no one who is a Christ follower, that can say, well, I don't have anything to offer that ministry.
I agree with you, especially the cookie thing. I mean, if I were in prison and I had a chance to get a cookie, you better believe I'd be there.
Yeah.
I'm just sorry, but food talks. It really does.
It does. It does. And the thing about it is, the men who we will go in less than a month, who we'll go in to spend the weekend with, they've already heard about the cookies. They already know that part of it. They've already heard about the food that we'll serve them. During our weekend in the institution, those men will not eat the same meals that the rest of the men in the prison are eating.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be more like what you and I would eat on a regular basis, or even on a Thanksgiving or a Christmas holiday.
Mm-hmm.
It's just another way that we're able to show them the love of Christ, show them that they have value, and that they're worth it. They're worth it. So yeah, the cookies are a big thing though, and you think about, as I was sharing with the church yesterday, we're gonna haul in about close to 700 dozen homemade cookies for a 3-day weekend.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of cookies.
Mm-hmm.
And when we leave, we won't take any out because they'll all be gone.
Uh-huh.
So that's probably one of the more known things about Kairos is the cookies. It's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. I think so too. Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about freedom, because really I thought I knew what freedom was until you and I were friends before you started coming on the show about Kairos prison ministry.
Mm-hmm.
But then you helped me to really understand when you lose your freedom and when that door is shut, I mean, you've lost your freedom. So to have you guys come in, that's got to be a huge glimmer of hope that they're not seeing the rest of the time.
It is, Donna, and as you know, it's been 2.5 years since we've been able to go in. First because of hang on just one second. Yeah, that's all right. First because of the situation with the pandemic, they shut the prison down for that, and then they really proceeded with an abundance of caution before letting people come back in, mainly because of the tight quarters in the institution. But 2.5 years we've been out. So that was 2.5 years. Part of that now, the men there at St. Clair, not only were we not able to go in, their family members were not able to visit. Mm-hmm. No one was able to visit. So they were shut off. They were shut off from everything. And I would think, I've never been in that situation, but I would think that that would be very difficult.
Well, they were shut off more, and it was terrible. People who were in nursing homes, at least they could look out a window and see their families, and you'd see pictures of putting their hands up, with the pictures, against the windows and that kind of thing. But it's not even that easy in prison. There's no windows to look in at.
Yeah, it's not. And you're right. When that door slams behind you and you've been convicted and you go to a place like St. Clair, St. Clair is a maximum security facility. And most of the men that are there are going to be there for a long, long time. Most of the friends that I have down there have been there more than 25 years, and are not slated to get out anytime soon. So, but what they've done, Donna, is they took a different approach. And they found a relationship with Jesus Christ that allowed them to find a different kind of freedom that they can have in there. And I've shared this with you before. Some of the most free and unencumbered men I know live in incarceration because they have chosen that relationship with Jesus Christ, and they don't focus on the walls around them or the fences or the concertina wire or they don't focus on those things. They focus on their relationship with Christ, and they are free indeed inside the walls of the prison.
And that's something where you can feel free when you're inside the walls of a prison. There are so many people who are in prison in their own homes.
Absolutely.
And they don't have that kind of freedom.
No, and that's we get bound up by we get incarcerated even by the things that trouble us in life, by depression or anxiety or our job, or just all kinds of things that can just tie us, that can just bind our hands and feet, almost, it feels like. And I don't know if you've ever had your hands and your feet bound where you could not move. but the response to that is sometimes a frantic response, and then it's kind of like a claustrophobic type thing, and there's all kinds of mental health issues that could come from that. So yeah, we there are folks who are prisoners in their own mind. But as a pastor friend of mine said yesterday, and he was preaching a sermon on from First Kings, and he was using a chessboard as his illustration, and the illustration, the image that he used showed one chess player who was Satan, who was meant to be Satan, the other person who was playing the chessboard, who was just a normal person. And it looked, according to the chessboard, like Satan had this person in check or checkmate, and his game was almost over. And the point of his sermon was, this was so cool. He talked about the king on the chessboard, and he said the king has one more move. Mm-hmm. And it's the same for us. If we find ourselves bound up in prison in our mind or in our homes or whatever, we just need to remember that the king always has a move that we can take advantage of, and that's to set us free through relationship with Christ.
And that's another thing too, is income really has nothing to do with it. There was a movie star, everybody knows who she was. She died. She was on drugs. They found out that's why she wrecked into a house, and she wound up being brain dead and pronounced dead when that happened. So millionaire, had plenty of money, but she was still in prison because she felt the need to do drugs.
Yeah. I've been in that prison. Mm-hmm. And it's you try to claw your way out of it sometimes, and you get so focused on clawing your way out of it that you forget to look up and see the hand that's there to reach down to pull you out of it. And it can lead to death. We hear about it all the time. And I was just reading something just a little while ago about that, and about celebrities, and about people who have that affluence, and how so many of them do have issues with addiction and mental health and things like that, and suicide rates and things like that. So, yeah.
Today I talked to a couple of soloists, and they sing gospel music. Mm-hmm. And so we're talking about, and I was thinking about you when they were talking about this. They were talking about when COVID hit, people pretty much felt imprisoned. They couldn't go to church. They were doing, be close to people, and no hugs, no nothing like that, doing the elbow things. Not the same thing as a hug. Mm-hmm. But those folks that have never felt imprisoned before were. And so we were also talking about how, people were actually going through depression, and suicide rates went up and that kind of thing. But now they just got a slight dose of what it's like for someone to be in a prison.
Exactly. Your whole life changes. And just for example, and I want to share this with you. During that time, back in 2020 and part of 2021, where there were no visitation of any kind allowed at St. Clair, drug usage, drug overdoses, deaths inside the prison went up dramatically. I don't think it's any secret that kind of isolation, even if it's isolation in your own comfortable home, is not good, and it's not healthy. Scripture tells us, in Genesis chapter 1, that when God designed us, and he was doing, going through the creation process, he said it's not good that man should be alone. Now, most people relate that to the fact that he had not yet created Eve, but he was about to. But I go a little deeper with that, and I think that also means that man was not designed and created to be alone, period. Not just with a wife or a spouse. We were created for community. And if you look at scripture, all through scripture, Donna, there was community. Jesus, he was God himself in the flesh, and even he had community. He set out in his early ministry by selecting people to go everywhere he went with him.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, again, back to what you were talking about, though, that isolation or that loneliness, those things that happened when people were locked up during that time, or I shouldn't say locked up, they were locked down, I guess. It was just not healthy at all.
And two, being around people creates this synergy, and it creates, thought and how can we make this work, that kind of thing. But both singers this morning also mentioned something else. And they said that people now are coming, there are more people coming to singings than ever before. They were locked down so much that they seem to appreciate being able to go out and going to concerts now.
It's kind of funny you would say that, because I've noticed over the last several months to a year maybe that in my travels as a lay speaker in different churches around North Alabama, kind of the consistent thing that I'm seeing is more people came back to in-person worship than they had before it stopped.
Mm-hmm.
They gained that appreciation. They gained that appreciation of being able to go and gather. And it's not true in all cases. Now, in some cases, it pretty much just shut churches down, or reduce their attendance, weekly attendance, by some. But in a lot of them that I'm going to, people actually were like, wow, I've been neglecting this, taking it for granted all this time. And when you get it taken away, then it's like, oh, wait, now I don't have that option. So.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree. We go to Lookout Mountain Cowboy Church. It's like close to Collinsville, out that way. I'm going to tell you, the church is not even completed yet. We're meeting in somebody's barn. And I don't know that I've ever seen so many kids in my life little kids. They're just all over the place. And there's way over 100 people. I haven't counted them, but way over people come. And I'm going to tell you, it's the worst of conditions. We want our churches air conditioned in the summertime, and we want heat in the wintertime. So we're going, it's still hot outside. People are having to bring their own chairs right now until the building is completed. And we're still drawing a crowd. It just blows my mind.
Well, those are folks that are dedicated. They're not living as creatures of comfort. They're living as creatures of faith, and they see the worth in going out in whatever the condition is to worship. And we think about that, Donna, I think sometimes, and we think that all over the place and everywhere that everybody's got this comfortable pew or this comfortable chair to sit in when they go to worship, and that's just not the case. I mean, it was probably, I'm going to guess it was probably 80 or 85 degrees Sunday when you were at church, where you were sitting. And
but I was probably the only comfortable person. Phil laughs because I'm like really cold natured. So I was actually comfortable. Everybody else was.
Right. But, I would venture to say that a lot of church buildings, if you were to turn off the air conditioning and they even had a comfortable seat, you'd see a change.
Yeah.
And I'm going to just leave it at that. And so, what's it worth to you? What's it worth to you to be able to go and worship? Is it worth a little bit of discomfort? Is it worth, a hard bench or a lawn chair or, a little bit of sweat on the brow? Is it worth it? Yeah, it should be.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We're going to go into a commercial break in just a few minutes, but I want to talk a little bit more about some scenarios. And these are folks that, they should say, well, my life is over. And they're in prison, but man, these people are like beacons, aren't they? They're beacons of light, even to you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I look forward to talking about that.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's go ahead and cut into a commercial break. I'll go ahead and take you off the scene, but I'll have you back in just a minute. Twin City Used Car Sales has been serving drivers in the Northeast Alabama area for years with a quality selection of late model used cars, SUVs, and pickup trucks. On top of our extensive selection and competitive prices, we offer professional auto financing services for used car buyers of all credit levels. Whether you've just begun your search or you're ready to secure your next vehicle, at Twin City Used Car Sales, you will drive away with the vehicle of your dreams. The sales and finance staff at Twin City Used Car Sales look forward to serving you. And you can apply for financing online before your visit to our used dealership in Fort Payne and Gadsden, Alabama. Check us out on the web at twincityusedcars.com or go by the locations in Fort Payne and Gadsden. We sincerely look forward to serving you. We're about to make your life just a little bit easier. Join Tony and April at Tony's Pizza and Subs in Center and Cedar Bluff, Alabama. We're cooking up some hot, delicious pizzas, and we'd like to bake one for you. We are home-owned, not a chain, and our pizzas are fresh, homemade with our dough made fresh daily. We have a full menu including fresh, never frozen wings, salad bars, suds, sandwiches, and much more. In Center, we have a private dining area for birthday parties, club meetings, and other events. We'll be waiting for you at 1820 East Bypass in Center, and in Cedar Bluff, 3812 Alabama Highway 9. For your convenience, you can call in your order at our Center location, 256-92 Pizza, or Cedar Bluff, 256-557-8651. And we enjoy making your life easier.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, and my employees and I want to thank each and every one of you for your continued support. With everything going on right now, your rest is so important. That's why we're having the biggest MyPillow sale ever. Not only are my bed pillows as low as $19.98, but you can get the best body pillows ever. Regular $89.98, now only $29.98. Take your rest on the go with our Roll and Go Anywhere My Pillows for only $14.98. And we have our new couch and accent pillows. They aren't just for looks. They have MyPillow's patented adjustable fill that gives you that amazing MyPillow comfort. In this economy, you get the best gifts ever for the best prices ever. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code and you get deep discounts on body, couch, bolster pillows, and so much more, including my original bed pillows for as low as $19.98. Please order now while quantities last.
Good afternoon. We are back. My name is Donna Fiesel, and I'm your host of Afternoon Drive Home on IC Radio. In the town of Geraldine, Alabama, we're your source for news and entertainment. You can also find us on television, channel 182 on Charter Communications, and also on Abundant TV, which is found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. You know, you can find us also online. You can find us on Twitter. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on, if it's social media, Randall, we do it all. You couldn't get away from us if you tried.
That's right.
But we appreciate this because what makes this show a success is the awesome guest we have. And we got one right now. His name is Randall, and he is with Karios Prison Ministry. Now, you want to talk about the business you're in right now for a few minutes?
Hang on just a second. Let me turn this up just a little bit. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Oh, let's talk about your business for a minute, and then let's get right back into Kairos. We want to talk about some success stories.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, Donna, I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing for Artemis Shielding, headquartered here in Fort Payne. And we're a very unique company. We make lead-free radiation shielding for multiple industries, medical industry, of course, TSA, like in the airports and things like that. We've still got some material floating around up in space on the International Space Station, protecting some of their electronics. We're doing lots of really, really cool things. We've developed some new concepts in the last 6 or 7 months that are really doing well. But we're blessed. We're blessed. We're a new company, and trying to get into an industry where one particular product has been used, which is lead, forever. And replace that with something that's non-lead, that is non-toxic, that is recyclable, that is environmentally friendly. It's still, even with all those attributes, it's still difficult sometimes to push your way into the market, but we're getting there by the grace of God.
That's good. Now, folks are listening all over the world. So if someone were interested in doing business with you, how can they get in contact with you?
They can go to our website. Our website is artemisshielding.com on the web, and there's lots of information, lots of testimonials from some of our customers who we've worked with. There's a contact page where you can reach out to us, and those contacts come directly to me. So if you contact us through artemisshielding.com, you're going to get me. So yeah, if you have any kind of a need for radiation shielding, that kind of a project, in whatever industry you're in, we'd be happy to talk to you. We'd love the opportunity.
That sounds good. Randall Ham, also with Karios Prison Ministry, and I love the testimonials because it seems as if you're getting as much out of this as prisoners are.
I'm gonna tell you something. I have had some really life-changing moments in my interactions with some of these guys in the prisons and in the jails and stuff. And sometimes when you're in a struggle, you can't see the forest for the trees. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you can't. I can't always see what the issue is within my own heart, but someone who's on the outside, who knows me and who cares for me, and they can reach me like that, because that's just the way it works. But yeah, I've had some men in at St. Clair Prison in particular, but also in the county jail here, who have been just so wonderful to pray for me when I was struggling with things and to help me kind of see my way. And that's the crazy thing, Donna. People think about a guy in prison who's maybe been there 25 or 30 years, that what good can he do anybody?
Right.
He's locked up in that prison, and he's where he deserves to be, blah blah blah. You know what I mean? What good could he possibly do anybody? Well, the truth is, they were created in God's image just like me and you, and they have a heart just like me and you. Now they may have done some things that might make people think they don't, but the fact is they do. And especially if they have found that personal relationship with Jesus Christ, and they receive that new heart, they're super useful. But you just have to open up your heart and your mind to receive that, and to understand that they can be a benefit to you as well. So yeah, I've had just literally life-changing moments that these have been brought about by my interactions with some of these men.
Let's talk a little bit about job placement, because you've made a mistake, and the only difference between those folks and us is maybe they've been caught and we weren't. And
well, exactly.
So, that can happen.
Yeah, exactly. And that is a challenge. Now, in the men coming out of the prison system, and of course, again, it's the prison that I work in on a fairly regular basis. Not many of those guys are coming out anytime soon. But the good thing is if they do, they most every time come out with some kind of a skill that they have acquired, or an education that they've acquired while they've been there. And I'm gonna tell you something. They're sharp and they're smart, and they've got a different perspective on things that people sometimes don't understand. So, I'll just be straight up with you. If I had a guy who was coming out of prison, and he had taken the time to learn a trade or a skill, or to get an education, I would jump all over that, because you know what? They don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
That is their own personal drive that's causing them to go. They could sit in their cell all day. They could sit out on the yard all day and do whatever, or do nothing. But they chose to hitch up their pants and pull on their boots and go, change their life for when the time comes that they do get out. Mm-hmm. Now in the in the local jail situation, that's a little more difficult sometimes. You would think it would be the other way around, but it isn't. It's a little more difficult. Most of the time, the guys coming out of the local jails, they get locked up. Many times they lose their job because of that, or whatever. And they're not in there usually long enough to develop any kind of a new skill set or an education or anything like that. So they're kind of coming out with what they had. So I'm trying to figure out the best way to put this, Donna. People are not as willing to take a chance on them. Which is sad, because again, some of those guys coming out of the jail out here are brilliant. I mean, they're smart and they're talented and they know stuff, and they had a trade before they went in. They didn't forget. But there's that stigma sometimes that's attached, especially at the local level, with people who have been incarcerated. Now, I guess if we weren't at full employment in the United States, it wouldn't be an issue. But and that's all I'm going to say about that. But if you look around at all the places who have help wanted signs, you'd think they'd just be all over these guys. But it's just not always the case. There's that stigma is there. And I would just urge people to get past that stigma and give some of these folks a shot. Give them an opportunity to show you what they can do, because I'm going to tell you something. Some of them are really good at what they do, maybe even better than the guy who's making the decision on hiring them in some cases. So that's kind of,
Sherry Hyde. Do you know Sherry?
I do. Yes.
She's with North Alabama Family Services, and they see the light on that. And it's all about redemption. As a matter of fact, the program is called Redemption. And so they're working with the Northeast and with Sneed College to kind of help these folks get these certificates so they can go ahead and get a job. But they're going one step beyond that. They're helping, and Sherry wants to work with you guys on this as much as she possibly can. But I mean, it's a good program that's out there, and they've received some grants that are helping make it happen too.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about them in the recent past. Sherry and her team are doing great things out there, and I've known Sherry's mom and dad, Gail and Lamar, for
they're awesome.
years. I guess they're just wonderful people. So it's another one of those cases where the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And Sherry's just got an amazing heart, and I appreciate her, and I appreciate what she and her team are doing to help folks who just need a little bit of a hand. Then they don't need a hand out; they just need a hand up. And I appreciate them for doing that.
Let's talk families right now, because you know how families can be the worst. You can make one mistake. I mean, just one, and it's like they remember it for life. What can we do as family members? And I just want to get some of that. I've given chance after chance after chance, but God keeps giving us chances.
Yeah, thank goodness for that. Thank the Lord for that. If I would hate to think what would happen in my life if I ran out of chances that the Lord gives me. And as if you're a family member of someone who is in that struggle, whatever that struggle is that keeps sending them back into incarceration or into halfway houses, if it's addiction, whatever it might be, you just gotta stick with them. You just have to. Because the truth is, most times they don't have anybody else other than the people they were running with that helped them find their way into incarceration. So you got a kind of a choice as a family member. Do I want to kind of try to lead them back in the right direction, or I just want to turn them over to their buddies who are going to lead them right back to jail or to death or to whatever it is that they're going to lead them to? And Donna, don't get me wrong, I know that is hard. Because I know some of these guys that I work with who it's been a lifelong struggle for them, and literally lifelong 15, 20, 30 years that families have dealt with this, and it gets old. I know it gets old for them, and I've talked with some of them so many times, and they're just at their wits' end and they don't know what to do. And I just encourage, if you're a family member of someone who is in that struggle, don't give up on them. Don't give up on them, because it only takes that one moment of clarity for them where they really want to make that change. And in that moment, if they've got some support, they stand a lot better chance of succeeding. But if they have that moment of clarity and they have that moment of, what, I'm not doing this anymore, I'm changing my life, and they look around and they're all alone, their chances go down and diminish greatly on being successful. So,
well, and two is family members, we can set guidelines.
Mhm.
One of those would be don't hang out with the same crowd, you know, and
Well, that's the truth.
yeah, and because some of those old buddies can get you right back into it again.
And Donna, I have that conversation on a regular basis with the guys that I minister to, mainly in the county jail, and I just tell them, look, you gotta find a different group of friends. You got to find a different group of men to surround yourself with if you honestly want change. The old saying, the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over and expect a different outcome. But that's what that tends to be the path that so many follow is they get out of jail, they look around, they don't have family. Well, I'm going to go to so-and-so's house. I know it's a trap house. I know that there's going to be dope and everything in there, but I'll just stay there and I'll be clean. I'll be the clean one in the bunch.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, you're not, especially if you don't have any other kind of support helping you. So, you know, yeah, they got to find a different environment. And sometimes that means moving to a different city or a different town or whatever to find that new group of people. Because here's the deal, and I've seen this over and over and over. So many times, if they go back even to the same town, they may not go looking for their old crowd. That old crowd's going to come looking for them.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just have to make a clean break.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about spouses, because I have an uncle and he made a few wrong choices as well. But I'll have to say this about my aunt was the best. I don't know, she's the best example of redemption I've ever seen in my life, because it was my uncle. And there were times I would say, why do you keep putting up with this? Why do you keep taking him back? But he actually it was practically on his deathbed. He did receive Christ.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I often thought if she hadn't kept taking him back after that, I wonder what would have happened to him.
Yeah. 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 Who knows?
Because it's hard on a spouse.
It is. My goodness, Lord, I lived that out in my earlier life, where I was the clean one in the group, and spent countless nights with a little baby and a small child in my care, wondering where mom was. And she was off in addiction and just really struggling and having a hard time making terrible choices. And in all honesty, I hung in there for about 2 years. And finally I realized that at that point it wasn't healthy for the children, because there were small children involved.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you have to make those hard decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Now, did I turn my back on her? No, I didn't. One of my children is with her, and we still have communication. We still have conversations, trying to encourage her when she needs it, and help her rebuild a relationship with the children.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's important, because I know a lot of folks, they go through divorces or whatever, and the other party is just the worst person God ever created, but we got to think kids first.
Yeah, when there's children involved, absolutely, it changes the dynamic. Adults can put up with a lot of stuff, and adults have the ability to see and overcome a lot of things. But you put a small child who's in maybe formative years of their life in an abusive or an addictive, addiction situation, and it can cause some serious ongoing issues later on into their lives. And so, like I said, a husband and wife in a situation like that, where one of them is struggling with addiction or some other kind of thing that's damaging the relationship, you really got to look at those kids. And sometimes you may have to make a hard decision that you really don't want to make. But when it's just adults can put up with a lot. And so
let's talk teenagers.
Oh Lord.
And let me tell you the parent I was. Okay, one son, and so I was a real nosy mother. Yeah. And so I would go into his room and I'd call him spot checks. and I would come in unannounced. He might be at school. I might have the day off, and I would let it be known that I didn't slip around and do it. I would leave things out so he would know I did a spot check. Not that I thought he would do anything. I
Yeah.
just thought that it might plant a seed like Mama's going to find out.
Yeah.
So is it okay to be a nosy parent?
Well, I think especially in today's times, it's essential that you be a nosy parent. Kids have access to so many more things these days, and avenues of communication with the outside world, and the availability of new cool things that kids are doing these days, that whatever kind of substance that might be. And so I think just for the safety of our children these days, including teenagers, especially teenagers, I think that's essential. I think you have to be, because as you well know, Donna, and as folks who are watching well know, you don't make your best decisions in your teenage years always. And so you need help, and you need help from folks who can kind of give you guidance and kind of steer you back in the right direction if you're making bad choices. So when my kids were growing up, they all had devices on their vehicles where I knew how fast they were driving, where they were, all that stuff. And it was effective. It was effective in most cases. Now, every now and then they just, they mash the gas pedal, and they knew Dad was going to see it later on. But in the moment, whatever other kid that was in the vehicle that they were trying to impress, they didn't really care about the consequences at that point in time. Mm-hmm. So, and all the more reason why it's essential that we are involved in our children's lives, and if that involves prying into the things that they're doing where there are ways they can be hurt, absolutely.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree with that. My kid is 43 years old now. My kid is 43 years old now. And
yeah.
But things are different now. I mean, we had some social media. It was not really that big of a deal back then, but I did try to control, I controlled cartoons he watched.
Yeah.
Everybody's watching the Simpsons cartoon. Well, I didn't like the Simpsons.
Yeah.
I didn't like the way the parents appeared as stupid, and the kids were smarter than them. So I didn't allow that. He didn't get to watch it. But now there's more, and it's hard to keep up. And there are a lot of grandparents raising grandkids. How do they keep up with this?
And that is such an unfair situation for both parties. Mm-hmm. And I get sometimes there are instances where maybe the parents, were killed or whatever, where that has to happen. But for grandparents to be raising a child of a parent who just simply chooses not to raise them themselves, or that is not a good situation for the child. Mm-hmm. Because I can tell you from experience, grandparents don't have the same energy as parents do, and they may have a little more patience sometimes, I think, mm-hmm. but they don't have the same energy. Mm-hmm. And it's also just not good. It's not good for the grandparents. It's a strain that they weren't intended to bear. But I'll tell you what, I know some grandparents who are in that situation, and they just handle it beautifully. They handle it wonderfully. And it's because they love the child so much. Mm-hmm. And so, but it's just not a good situation.
Well, the grandparent has to be the bad guy, because it's a grandparent. Okay, the kid probably already has a cell phone. And so they're on social media, they're on Facebook, they're acting like grown-ups when they're not. They're acting like they're older than they are. And maybe I just watch too many crime TV shows or something, but there's a lot of it with kids who are, they're pretending to be much older than they are on Facebook, and then they wind up, something happens to them, and it affects the rest of their life.
And again, that is where, for younger children, and teenagers, it's imperative that parents stay tuned in to what their kids are doing, that they stay involved in what their kids are doing. And it's basically, if you break it down, most kids these days have a device in their hand they're carrying around that can contact anybody in the world.
It's scary.
That's, you stop and think about that for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Not only can they contact anybody in the world, but anybody in the world can contact them.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you really have to stay on top of those things, to get your children to an age where they can begin to make better decisions and take care of themselves better.
But then on the other hand, I mean, you can't go extreme both ways. Kids also have to have some sort of freedom as well, or they can't grow, they can't function.
Well, we always told our kids, as we see a history, as we see you making better decisions, we're going to give you more leeway.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to give you a little more room. Now, if we start seeing you get out of whack again, we're going to yank the chain back again. It's just like kind of when you're walking a dog, and maybe this is not the best analogy, but if you're walking a dog and the dog is walking along properly, he doesn't ever feel the pressure of the lead that you got him on.
Mm-hmm.
But when he acts up, you give it a yank and to get his attention.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not much different with the kids. It's not a leash around their neck, but it's their freedom to make their own choices and do the things that they want to do. And so it's kind of I guess it's a it's a reward system. If you show me that you're mature, if you show me that you make good decisions, I'm going to let you attempt to make more of them until I see you making mistakes.
I think that's pretty smart. And also there's this thing called kids need to be taught redemption. And I think a lot of parents that they get into the madness of the whole thing that happens, and they tell that kid, I'm going to disown you. Does a kid ever need to hear those words? I'm going to disown you.
No, that never needs to be a word or a phrase they need to hear.
Mm-hmm.
That's tragic.
Mm-hmm.
That's tragic. I might light up your rear end with a belt like you've never been lit up before, or you might be grounded, until you turn your next birthday or whatever. But you're always going to be my son or daughter, and I'm always going to love you. But there's boundaries, and you're going to go by them.
Absolutely. Now I know you guys have lots of events, and lots of events where men get to meet together and they get to talk about things. And
Yeah.
You guys like to talk like us women like to talk too.
We did well. Yeah, kind of. We like to.
You got a wife you got to go to tonight.
That's exactly right. I'm not gonna say much there. We do. We've got actually this Saturday morning coming up. We've got our Ground Zero men's breakfast out at the Huddle House in Fort Payne at 9:30. We'll gather there around 9:30 and kind of chit chat and have coffee or orange juice or whatever, and then we'll have our devotional time. Will start about 9:45. We'd love to see men from who are able to get there come in person to join us. It's just a great time. The food out there at Huddle House is so good, and we've got a meeting room out there, so we're kind of not sitting out in the middle of the restaurant trying to have these conversations. So it's just a great time of fellowship and coming together as brothers in Christ to lift one another up and to encourage one another and to just support one another. And then about 9:45, once we get our orders placed, we'll have our devotional, and we'll live stream that devotional. We do that every year. And so and then it'll remain on the Ground Zero men's Facebook page and all the other social media, like you were talking about, that people can go back and view later if they miss it. One other thing that I really want to plug real quick before we have to go, Donna, is one of our ministry partners is Element 26 Men's Ministry. They're out of the Chattanooga, Tennessee area. My dear friend Travis Updegrove heads up that ministry. And in weekend of October the 14th through the 16th will be the 7th annual Element 26 Men's Fall Retreat up at Camp Fort Bluff in Dayton, Tennessee. And it is an amazing weekend, Donna. I don't remember how many men we baptized last year, but it was just crazy. It's just an amazing event out in the woods and out in the mountains of Tennessee. Get this, $70 includes your lodging, your meals, the 3 speakers that we'll hear, this year's t-shirt. You're going to have a pistol range, hiking, fishing, rappelling, all kinds of activities for like a free time on Saturday afternoon. Just
Wow.
amazing times of worship. I don't know how they do it for $70. I really
I don't
don't.
either.
But you can go to element26.cc, element26.cc, and you can find all the information that you need to get signed up for the Element 26 fall retreat. Chuck and myself will be there. We've got a bunch of Ground Zero men from here in the area. They're going to be up there too. Men coming from all over. I mean, like all over states, all over the United States. Men are showing up for this. There's actually a bus coming up from Florida, bringing a bunch of men. They have got a bus, a chartered bus, to bring a bunch of guys up there. So it's going to be a great time. It's just going to be a wonderful time up in the mountains. So
it's going to be great. Anything else you'd like to say before you go? About 3 minutes left in this segment.
You know, Donna, there's just something that I would like to say, something that's really been on my heart lately, and with so much going on in the world, you know, of course, there's so much going on in politics and the political world that's just got people just chomping at each other's throats. And, you know, as you probably know, we have a situation in the United Methodist Church that's very similar, that's just got chomping at the throats of other people in the United Methodist Church, or other factions of the United Methodist Church. And the thing that's been put on my heart for the last month or so has been the word grace. It's you know, I think in John chapter 8 of the story of the woman who was caught in adultery, and how even though Scripture says that she was caught in the very act, so there was no doubt that she was guilty, no doubt. And when they brought her to Jesus, he knew she was guilty. And, you know, they're getting ready to start throwing the rocks at her to stone her to death, because that's what the law called for. And you know, Jesus told them, you know, let you who is without sin cast the first stone. And what that was is he was causing them to look into their own hearts and see their own brokenness and see their own faults and their own shortcomings, instead of just focusing on hers. And I think if we could do that in the United States and around the world and in our churches and just as a whole, if we could take just a minute and look into our own hearts and see that, you know what, we're pretty messed up too. And we really have no place to condemn another person. And that's what Jesus said. He said, I don't condemn you either. That's what he told her, even though he knew she was guilty. Now, he acknowledged her sin. He said, go and don't do that anymore. I mean, I'm paraphrasing there, but he said, go and live a different life. And, you know, I just think about that and how she must have felt knowing that she walked away from the King of Kings with no condemnation. And I just think if we treated more people like that in our own lives and the people around us, Lord, what a different world this could be.
I think so too. And as far as arguments and stuff like that, I just don't do that. And you'll get picked out on Facebook, you know.
Yeah.
I just don't do it. I just want, you got to know when to walk away.
Yeah.
And so it's just not worth it. It's not worth breaking up friendships over. It's just not worth it.
It's not, and it's just not worth having all that tension and bitterness and all that in your heart. You know, you know, that's another thing that'll bind you. You know, just like addiction or anything, bitterness will bind you.
Worse than addiction. Worse.
That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Randall, we got to call it a day. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's always a pleasure.
All right. Thanks, Don. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Tell Lisa hello for me.
I'll do it. And you tell I said hello.
Sure will. Guys, we're going to have to go on to another guest. Thank you again so much for watching. We'll be right back.